of the implementation of the national education policy, the new national education policy, which was started in the year 2020. And since then, we have seen a lot of changes in the education system, both on the ground and also at the policy level, not only at the central level, but also within the states as well. And 5 years, I feel, is an appropriate time to take stock of how well the policy has performed, where there have been, if there have been any shortcomings in its implementation, how we look forward to go ahead and make it a successful venture in the coming years. So 5 years is definitely such a point where we can at least have hindsight of what could have been better as well. So as far as the implementation part is concerned. So taking all this into consideration, I feel one of the best persons to explain about NEP 2020, how there have been many preceding policies to NEP 2020, what are the prospects in future, how the policy has been working till now. About all this, I think the best person to explain is none other than Professor Mohan Menon, who is indeed a luminary in this field. Sir, it is my proud privilege on behalf of IGNOU Regional Center Trivandrum to welcome you to this program. We are indeed fortunate to have you as our very learned resource person for this day. I feel there is no better person to go into NEP 2020 than you, sir. And as we all know, Mohan Menon, sir, I won't call it his retirement. Once he has parted out from his institutional life, quote unquote, has been more active and busier than before. And whenever I open the newspapers, I see Sir's name in heading a number of committees, including the one in Kerala, which related to the teacher training education, which he has spearheaded with a great deal of finesse and accomplishment. And not only that, Sir has also been very closely associated with the academic life of not only the state of Kerala and India, but also of a number of countries, including Malaysia, and he has also worked in institutions such as the UN. So I will not go any further into Sir's accomplishment because I have my colleague, Dr. Priya Pradeep, who will be going deep into that. However, today's topic is very, very relevant. Sir will be talking today about the NEP 2020 retrospect and prospect. And that topic is very, very appropriate as we stand at the threshold of the 5th year of the operation of this policy. NEP 2020, as you all know, has made a paradigm shift, so to say, in many of the aspects, including the multidisciplinary form of studies that it has initiated. It has gone in for a holistic changeover of the way in which we normally look at education. Then there is also this issue of institutional autonomy, I'm sure which Sir will definitely talk about how far it has been accomplished as far as our institutions are concerned. Then there is also one important point which the NEP 2020 talks about, that is the National Research Foundation. So how far it has gone ahead and made research feasible and easier in a country like India. Then you have also issues like continuous professional development, which the NEP talks about. So these are all some of the areas which this NEP, New Education Policy, has talked about in great length. And today it is an opportune moment for all of us to discuss these very important aspects. And Sir's presentation, I'm sure, will be an eye-opener. Now, before handing over to Mohan Menon, sir, it is my privilege to welcome the participants of this program. We have regional directors, assistant regional directors, deputy directors, functionaries from a large number of IGNOU centers across the country. Apart from that, we also have invited very distinguished persons, both from the field of education as well as from other areas of other vocations as well, who will also be dwelling into this very important aspect of NEP 2020. So I welcome all of you to this program. It is IGNOU Regional Center Trivandrum finds itself highly privileged to welcome such a highly educated and highly august audience to this webinar. And I'm also happy to see that the number of participants in this program is increasing by the moment. And I'm sure a lot of others will also be watching this program on the YouTube live, sorry, the Facebook live that we are running concurrently with this session as well. So to introduce more about Professor Mohan Menon, sir, let me welcome Dr. Priya Pradeep, our Deputy Director. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Respected Chief Guest Professor Mohan Menon, Senior RD Dr. M. Rajesh, colleagues and academics from various regional centers and faculties from various institutions. Today we are organizing this program as part of the 5th anniversary of launching of NEP 2020. And it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Mohan Menon, Chief Guest of today's program. Professor Mohan Menon is an eminent personality in the field of education, and presently Professor Menon is serving as the founding honorary chairperson of Disha Global Trust Kochi. During his 15 years of career, Professor Menon held several important positions, including Chief and Director of UNESCO, UN RWA Education Program for Palestine Refugees, Jordan, Deputy Vice Chancellor of Wawasan Open University, Malaysia, Education Specialist and Team Leader at the Commonwealth of Learning, Canada, Chairman of National Open Schooling, and Planning Officer and Professor at the School of Education at Indira Gandhi National Open University, and UGC Research Fellow and Lecturer at the Center of Advanced Study in Education, MS University of Baroda. And his teaching and research experience our main expertise are in the areas of teacher education, science education, then open and distance learning, then open educational resources and digital learning. He has also consulted for several international agencies such as UNESCO, UNDP, World Bank, UNICEF, COL, IRDC, and DFID. He was conferred D.Litt by Open School of Sri Lanka in 2008 for his outstanding contributions in education in Commonwealth countries. Today, sir will talk about the retrospects and prospects of NEP 2020, and I'm sure that you will get valuable insights about this topic. Thank you very much, and over to Mohan, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh and Dr. Priya. First of all, and good morning to all of you, all the participants from all over the country, and many of them are known to me.
Sorry.
Participate in this program. And Dr. Rajesh invited me to this, and I was a little hesitant at that time, mainly because how to put this a large topic like this, national education policy with a very comprehensive proposals and recommendations, that how to put it into a 45 minutes or 1 hour presentation was my major issue, because each aspect may require time to explain. So what I'm trying to do today, as all of us know, that we are celebrating or commemorating the 5th 5 years of National Education Policy 2020. I am trying to look at organize my talk as an academic and as a person who has experienced some of the implementation aspects of or areas of the NEP, and try to have a presentation which I think is required when such a transformation policy or implementation is reaching 5 years. This is the time that we have to look at how this policy is getting implemented. And as all of us know, that for the last 78 years after our independence, several things have happened in the area of education. And the first 20 years has also been a transformation process that happened post-independence. So if you look at the education system, it's a very large system. I mean, a policy for a country like ours, probably the only democratic country which as large as this, and with a lot of complexity, not only in terms of the structure and implementation of the different sectors of education, but also in many social political aspects. If you look at a federal country like ours, with the state responsibility as well as the central responsibility being there for the implementation, the quality and expansion of education, it is something which one has to look at more carefully. And I'm glad that this policy has, next slide please, the policy has really wanting to look at attempting to, next slide, attempting to transformation is the word which is always used for NEP 2020, rightly so. And some of the focal points have been also highlighted, like the holistic development, flexibility, skill development, multidisciplinary approach. These are some of the, and also looking at the technology use, the digital divide, which of course may be coming in the way of its implementation. But what is being attempted is a system-wide transformation. That is what is envisaged. To what extent this has been initiated in 5 years, I really don't think that we can look at whether transformation has happened to what extent or not. I think that is not probably what can do after 5 years of implementation. What we can look at is, have we initiated things properly? And also in all aspects of the educational system. Let's go into the next slide. See, so it is important that this policy cannot be looked at as something which is happening in a vacuum. We have to look at the history, what was there in the country earlier, and what is happening now, and then what's the prospects, the way forward. So I'm broadly structuring my talk in these three sections. Next slide. Now, yes, next. Retrospect. So all of us know that at the time of independence, the country was in a very bad situation, because as very less investment was being made to education at that time by the prior to the independence, like by the colonial in the colonial past. And then the challenge that the country was facing at that time was really very, very critical. And whether you look at any of the parameters like the literacy rates or the enrollment in schools, primary also, and very, very low, and secondary also very, very low, as in higher education only a fraction could go to higher education. So the focus mainly on basic education and limited vocational and technical training. That is what being focused at that time, at the time of independence. Next slide. So the post-independence, if you look at, there have been efforts made by the government. One who has studied, or rather have a cursory look at the history of education at that time, will clearly say that along with agriculture and technology, science development, education was given one of the prime priority, the focus at that time, and that led to several efforts being made for the expansion, diversification, and reshaping of education. I didn't find the word transformation at that time used in any of the, maybe it is used, but I missed it. But I feel that what was being attempted at that time was expansion. So you need more and more learners to come in for primary, secondary, and higher education, and diversification, not to be only in one track, but to have many the channels or paths of education and reshaping some of the things that which involved also restructuring, which we can see later. Next slide. Three commissions always we talk about among educationists, which really led or rather initiated the discussion. You can see the University Education Commission was just after independence, 48-49, Radhakrishnan Commission, as we know. And that was looking at higher education system according to the needs of independent India. And Secondary Education Commission, 52-53, the Mudaliar Commission, as many of us, as was popularly known as, and the very comprehensive two-volume Education Commission, 64-66, by D.S. Kothari Commission. So these were the four commissions which were established and that came out with their recommendation. One would ask at that time why there was no commission for primary education. It was higher education, secondary education, and education commission. Of course, Kothari Commission did look into primary education, but was not only focusing on primary education. One would say, is that the one should not be the one first looking for? I mean, I was a little surprised initially, but then I thought why they did not go into primary education it was part of the constitution itself. That constitution had the directive principles and had clearly mentioned about education for all, education for up to age of 14 and because it is already in the directive principles and some of the constitutional provisions later supported that, probably the government would have thought there was no need to go for a commission for that. I mean, that's just my observation. Next slide, please. This now coming to National Education Policy 68. Many of us call it as a draft education policy. The reason is that it was not placed in the parliament. Although government published it and made it available to all, and the recommendations of the earlier commissions and committees which were there earlier were incorporated into this, and it was quite a comprehensive policy also, as we can see that it emphasized the free and compulsory education for all, which is part of the constitutional provision itself, improved teacher training, where changes were made like from earlier LT to BT, and then later it became BEd. These changes happened, and development of Indian languages was given an emphasis at that time. So what is being attempted today by the NPE, like coming from English to local languages, was initiated even at that time, and it was emphasized in the 68 draft policy. And equal educational opportunities, like for all the disadvantaged groups, gender, women, girls, etc. All these were emphasized, and science and technology education was given a major push, which of course happened even before the policy. As you will remember that during the first decade after independence, there was a support, development in science and technology. The Indian Institute of Science being strengthened, the TIFR being strengthened in the first 10-15 years. And then, of course, all the IITs being established at that time, and one major development that happened at that time for the first time in the entire world is the land grant universities, agriculture universities. There was the concept of an agriculture university was first invented in India, and that actually made it possible to all the Green Revolution and all that happened subsequently. The work of the agriculture university, and I do remember in my childhood how difficult it was that we changed it from rice to wheat. Chapatis were eaten for the first time by in Kerala. I'm talking about, not other places, and because of the ration that was there, and we had to depend on the ration, and the PL 480 aid that came from US and all this. So we were not self-sufficient, but during the 60s and later in the 70s, we became self-sufficient in food. All this happened partly or mainly, I would say, because of the two things. One, of course, the agriculture university's contributions, and second, how the All India Radio made it possible to communicate the whole new seeds and new crops and all these to the entire country. Radio's contribution. So the media, technology coming in, and of course, the cultivating moral and social values were also, value education was emphasized in that too. Now, the coming next slide. So that is the 68 draft policy. Then comes the national policy on education, 86. I'm not touching in between. So many things would have happened. Small committees would have been there. But 86 committee was it was a landmark. To me, probably that was the way really a policy should be formulated in a large country like ours. Because before the policy, there was in 85, there was a document which was published by the Ministry of Education, Government of India, called Challenge of Education, 1985. What is the Challenge of Education? What it did at that time was to make a document to record and all the developments till now in education and what are the possible ways of going forward. And before the draft 86 policy was even the policy was drafted, this Challenge of Education document was distributed countrywide. And I remember being in the Baroda University at that time, we discussing it in our seminar, presenting what are the aspects of the Challenge of Education and giving our recommendation to the government. That was a good participative process that happened before the policy. Any policy, if it has to be effectively formulated, needs to have the voice of the people coming from the down, and that has to be considered for formulating the policy. You see, in 68 draft, such a thing did not happen because they were depending on mainly the Education Commission 64-66 Kothari Commission, which had captured the recommendations of the earlier commissions also, and then based on that Education Commission, the 68 draft was done. But when it came to the 86 draft, it was mainly the discussions happened in the Challenge of Education document. So, and key recommendations included, I don't want to go into the details of 86, but it is important to know what are the things to understand and build on that in the when it comes to the NEP-2020. That's why I'm presenting it. Universal access to education, strengthening elementary and secondary education, expanding higher education opportunities, vocational education, adult literacy, teacher training, then child-centered approach, Operation Blackboard. Some of you will remember that at that time. And we should remember that surely that the strengthening of the National Open University, the Indira Gandhi National Open University happened after 86. The 85 already in the Challenge of Education, the Open University's name was there because university came up in 85. And then its declaration was done earlier to that by the then government. And also then the strengthening happened after that. Just want to refresh my memory, and some of you will also remember, is that in addition to this, several other things happened in the 80s and 90s. The district primary education project, supported by the World Bank, and then which sent into the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, and then later secondary education Abhiyan, etc. So that happened on one side, and then of course we have the child-friendly school, joyful learning, such things that was highlighted with UNICEF support at that time, I remember, and which all were incorporated into the district primary education project, where the expansion and quality was the main thing. So the focus was mainly in primary education because the enrollment was low and dropout rate was high. So obviously that there was an emphasis that was done to that, and the open university system was seen as a panacea for increasing enrollment. And today you can see that the IGNOU has done its job fairly well in and it's the enrollment of whatever around 30% today, or 25 to 30% is mainly because of the distance education system. Otherwise, formal system still enrolls much less than that. And so, the contribution of the open university system is seen very well there. Now, next slide, please. In addition to all these commissions, there were several constitutional provisions and amendments. I don't want to go into that. There are several dozens of them, which actually have direct link to education as well as indirectly supporting education. Directive principles of the state policy, that is the compulsory education, free and compulsory primary education, was a directive principle. It was not a statutory thing that all should be in the school, but it was a directive principle. That's how the direction for the country's progress is what is given in a directive principle. And then, of course, Article 46 on the weaker sections, especially SC, ST, etc. Next slide. And then, of course, you have the 42nd Amendment, which all of us know, shifting from state subject to concurrent list. Till that time, education was on the state subject. The entire responsibility of education was for the state. And when it comes to certain conflicts between the state and the center, that is the state and the union, then there will be the upper hand will be for the union, because the quality was a major issue there which union wanted to. But that was changed in 1976. And then the more and more participation of the center came in, and that actually helped in going into the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, and all these were large support came from outside and from the center. Then the 86th Amendment, that is very, very critical. 2002, the right to education, the free and compulsory act in the Article 21A as a right, fundamental right. So fundamental right means it is to be given, compulsorily to be given, which actually gave a responsibility to the parents also, that if the children are not sent to the school, it can be punishable. So Right to Education Act was very important, and that it is the 86th Amendment also had the fundamental duty of every parent or guardian to provide opportunities for education from 6 to 40. So this is the background. And then now we will go into the NP-2020 and look at NP-20 within the context of this background of the policies earlier, whatever implemented and not implemented, and also the slowness which it was going on, and which actually led to the, of course, July 30th is the date I find here. Today is 29th. Maybe we were celebrating a day earlier, or it was presented probably on 29th. I don't know. So that was 5 years back. And I mean, the details of that, we know that the Kasturirangan, famous scientist, he was the chairman of that. And in June 2017, I happened to read the draft policy during the COVID time. And in fact, that was early 2020, before the final, and the draft policy was circulated all over the country. But as a draft policy itself, not as a prior to a draft policy, a document to discuss the educational system, but after a draft policy. What actually we missed in that is only this. Yes, it was participative because the draft policy was discussed in among all, but it was a draft policy which was discussed, not the educational status before that. So whatever that I said till now, which probably would have gone into till now, which would have gone into a challenge of education type of document prior to 2020 NEP did not happen. So we almost like started like fresh as we are reinventing the system altogether. Yes, partly the commission was, I mean, the policy committee, Kasturirangan committee was correct, because that there is a transformation that is required, but it was only transformation and not replacement. That is what I wanted to focus on in a policy formulation, not only just even for a institution. If you want to replace the institution completely, you don't have to bother about the earlier things. But then if you are transforming the institution or a system or a country sector or whatever, you have to consider the earlier, then only you can transform it. So that was probably one thing that lagged. Maybe unknowingly, that's possible, that it was because the draft was discussed. So we thought that is good enough to have the feedback of, yes, large number of feedback received as the observations later or articles later where I read thousands of feedback, all came online. Why? Because it was COVID time. So COVID was another obstacle that the present the disadvantage that when this NEP 2020 was formulated happened. So that was unfortunate. If the COVID was not there, probably more and more face-to-face discussions would have happened in different parts of the country, in the university system, or even in different states, within the state government institutions. Apart from that, but the good thing that happened also we have to keep in mind. COVID, as all of us know, gave a experience for us to compulsorily. We were all compelled to go for technology. See, even before COVID, all these things we are using today, the digitization, digital learning, MOOC, and open educational resources, and online learning, etc., were all there. All not only there theoretically, but was practiced by many institutions in India also. But most of the educational institutions were not going into that because of their usual lethargy coming out of their being in the comfortable zone, as one would say, that we are going on well with this, so why go for technology? And even if we go for technology, the easiest thing is that put some gadget into the institution. But using that in the classrooms was not a practice in a large scale. Yes, many teachers used it. Good teachers always used it. Only one of them became very popular. One of the technologies is the overhead projectors, the projections, which actually even had a counter effect. I mean, it has a negative effect because teachers followed a mechanical way of reading or presenting the OHPs or the slides. So that was the situation when COVID came in and our educational system was disrupted considerably. So and teachers were compelled to go use the technology. And as all of us know that, students were very happy with that because students were already into digital learning. They were digital natives already at that time. We are talking about 2020. So they were born into many of them were born into the digital world because digitization started in the late 80s. And by 90s, actually, digital technology was used, if not extensively, but surely used by many institutions, even in India. So students were happy about that, but teachers were oriented to that. And that influenced the finalization of the NEP, according to me. I have not read it anywhere, but this is my own assessment, that when the NEP final document came out, a lot of positive things were for open distance learning, distance education, digital learning, MOOC, etc., which was a very positive thing that happened and which was incorporated in very readily by the National Education Policy. Okay, so next, going to the next slide. Now, broadly, if you look at the educational policy, the transform is the keyword. Holistic and multidisciplinary approach are also two keywords. I mean, these are very important because that cuts across all the aspects of implementation of NEP. We are talking about transformation. Second is that holistic from the point of view of the child. Holistic is normally the overall, the full development, overall development of the child, including their values and spiritual aspects, and all were emphasized by the policy. And so, if you look into the key features, universal access to education still continued as a key, although the NEP 2020 says that most of the developments that happened, it says in the policy itself somewhere, telling that the earlier policies helped mainly the development of primary education, but not to that extent the secondary and higher education, and focus here will be all the three. That is what the policy had mentioned. There is a change that in structure that was suggested for primary. The first change that happened during the 60s was when from 11+1+2 system to a 2 and later 3 graduation to 10+2+3. This came as a recommendation of the Education Commission report, Kothari Commission. And I would say, because I personally as a learner, I was part of that change process. So even I can say the pains that the children went through that when that change happened, when pre-degree started. And Kerala already had a 10+2+3 started in 1964. Although 1966 is when the commission report came up, and commission mentions also that Kerala is the only state where 10+2+3 is already implemented, but implemented and pre-degree in the university system, which was not, Kothari Commission was not for that. And it took almost like how many years? Almost like 30 years for Kerala to bring it to the school education, +2 coming to the school education. Now, before that, so now present structure is 5+3+3+4, including 3 years of pre-primary, 2 years of early primary, then 3 years of upper primary up to the age of 8th grade, and 4 years of secondary. This is, and then in higher education, 4 years of higher education, as they are implementing the 4-year undergraduate program. Emphasis on fundamental literacy and numeracy was there even now. So it emphasizes that, and it's seen as a campaign that we have to take up, mainly talking about that every child should be able to read and write and literacy aspects. Adults also was given but more focus was for the children. Integration of vocational education is a major feature that is attempted here. Technology-enabled learning in NPE. Multilingualism is emphasized here. We will see that a little later in detail. Flexible curriculum and assessment reforms. Next slide. See, let me be very clear in the beginning. It's now itself that I am not in a position to give all the details of all the things that happened in school education or higher education. So I have only listed a few. And in school education, new school structure, as I said earlier, 5+3+3+4, and which actually is foundational, preparatory, middle, and secondary. And then early childcare education was given emphasis, and main thing has been for the first time in the country that preschool education was formalized. It was not part of the school system till the NPE 2020. So now 3 years of preschool also becomes part of the system. So you can imagine what sort of impact that would be there in the states, that we have to bring all those 3 years into the school system, and with formal arrangements made for that, and also teachers being appointed according to that. So what sort of investment and all would be required for that is clear from that. But it's a very, very, very positive change that has happened, because earlier that was in the private sector. There were different types of Montessori's and nurseries and preschools, and all these were going on, and the quality control in that was a major issue. Who teaches that? There was no control on that, etc. So that's a major major recommendation. Next. That foundational literacy and numeracy, a national mission is being set up, and multilingualism actually considered the mother tongue, home language, and local language as medium of instruction, which was there already. In fact, even when I remember when the DPP and Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan was being implemented in many of the pockets, the regional language was not the mother tongue. Mother tongue was a local language. So children have to learn first the local language, the mother tongue or home language, as one would call it, and then change to the regional language, where from in schooling it is mainly in the regional language. So as medium I'm talking about. So that is still emphasized here, that we have to have that, and you can see that that's very much said in the tribal areas. In the so many dialects are there, and children learn that or talk in that dialects. That is the medium, and later moving and transiting to the regional medium. Holistic and multidisciplinary education, that of course was one major emphasis. So wider range of subjects and disciplines, breaking down traditional barriers between arts, science, and vocational streams. And this is something which is being implemented in all systems. I mean, if you see undergraduate program or 4-year undergraduate program today, the integrated teacher education program, etc. So that was being emphasized. Next. Experiential learning, which of course has been there. Earlier, we all talked about child-centeredness, experiential, bridging the gap between theory and practice. But focus on vocational education is given more emphasis. With every stage we needing internships and apprenticeships, especially in higher education. School education also is being emphasized in NPE. Next. Assessment reforms. You see, if one area which has gone through several sort of changes or policies which are discussed is the area of assessment. And areas assessment has been a major critical point which created problems even in the quality of education. The reason is that what is being taught is not what is being assessed. So it came the other way around. The education or learning got confined to what is being assessed. So final examination, if these are the 10 questions that will come, and then of course the whole learning will be only towards that. We know that even today that's an issue. So to come out of that and to make it competency-based assessment, even before the policy, as we know that this is competency-based and outcome-based, and Bloom's taxonomy being used, and all these have been there, and higher order thinking, lower order thinking. But teaching always happened in the lower order areas, or rather the knowledge and recall of things and recognizing things. And so testing also became like that. So that is being reformed in many ways in this during the implementation of the policy. And teacher empowerment. The continuous professional, here we are talking about not only the school, of course, school is the focus here, but so it is continuous professional development of the teachers in many ways, whether it is done through the CRTs or NCRT taking the initiative for that, and teacher empowerment. That emphasis has been there earlier. Now also it is there, but it's teacher training itself was the pre-service teacher training. Major recommendation came, that's went to the integrated teacher training, ITR, integrated teacher education, ITEP education program. Next slide. Now coming focus to higher education. In fact, I want to talk more of higher education being as IGNOU in the higher education system, but you cannot leave out school education. And many of the things related to school education is also applicable in higher education. Next slide. Gross enrollment ratio. So expansion is very much also the focus. And by 2035, it should reach 50%. That is what the policy says. Now, it is growing. Distance education, of course, contributes to a great extent. So supporting higher education and distance education is important. See, online provision of online courses like IGNOU itself, I think I should give that example. You have two types of programs offered by IGNOU. One, IGNOU offering through the study centers, as it used to be, the traditional study center based teaching of IGNOU. And second is the online. Now, the online, you know very well that the online courses have increased the enrollment to a very large extent. So my only difficulty is that that whether this online education and then assessment of courses which are structured and leading to a degree and all may be all right, because you are going online support also through the academic counseling support and all these being given. But just having courses which is only for that, just like MOOCs, which is not certified, we cannot actually, even when MOOC came up in the from US, Corsica and all those different MOOCs, the participation rate was very high. Success rate was not that high. And completion rate was high, but success rate also, how much they have understood and learned from that is, which is okay for informal learning, non-formal type of learning, it is okay. Whether that also will be counted for this 50%, I'm not sure. I think we should focus on offline learning, online learning, but all structured, certified courses, if it can be provided, and also offline, campus-based course altogether by 2035, 50%, that's fine. But today, after 5 years, we are not in a position to really say we are going towards that. The flexible higher education, multiple entry exit options, yes. I think this is something which is being implemented. The 4-year undergraduate program already has provided that. Similarly, the academic bank of credits, yes. These are all very positive developments where they're properly structured, and institutions are now able to allow students to accumulate and transfer credits, and then provide the certification in one institution or more than one institutions, or in one mode or across modes. You can have credits coming from distance education and being used by the formal system, and students can accumulate credits and get a degree from one of the universities from where it is coming. So that is possible today. Next slide. Internationalization. In fact, internationalization is an area which is coming up. Only the other day that the Prime Minister was in UK, and 5 universities have agreed that they will set up campuses in India. India has always been sort of a little, traditionally I'm telling, resisting for foreign universities coming up, setting up universities here. Even private universities came up much later, only about 20 years back, I think, in some different states. In Kerala, of course, it is only yet to come. I mean, in Kerala, because the act is already there. I don't know whether it is signed by the governor, but it is there. It's already drafted, and then universities can come up. Both Indian universities and private universities can come up. So there will be expected a large flow of students coming from outside also, and within the university, within the country here, enrolling in the foreign universities. And similarly, there are 4 things which were focused in internationalization. One is campuses coming in, foreign universities coming to India. Indian universities setting up in other countries. Like, for example, IIT has a campus in Tanzania, I think, and similarly other universities may like to. It is IIT Chennai which has a campus in, and other universities also may set up in. So that's very positive that Indian university, quality Indian institutions, setting up institutions outside. See, one of the things that the government expects, that India being a very old country with its own civilization, its own local knowledge, so Indian knowledge system is also attracted by students outside the country. So, like we have heard, students coming in to Indian institutions to learn Indian performing arts or Indian music, or similarly other Indian Ayurveda and such things. So there is a large development, or rather efforts going on to create content for the Indian knowledge system. So that is something which is, if you look at the efforts made in the last 2-3 years, this is one of the focus areas we are creating. The only thing that we have to be careful about that is that what is being included into the content of this Indian knowledge should be evidence-based and something which is comparable or rather acceptable in the globally. Because after all, knowledge is universal. It is not Indian or British or US. It is universal. Indian knowledge system can contribute and has contributed already and should contribute, and we should make efforts to do that to the universal knowledge system. So that is the efforts that is, I hope, all the efforts being made here. And also another reason why that is being done is that in the colonial past, many of the Indian inventions in science and technology were sidetracked and kept aside, and then importance were given only to the inventions or discoveries that made outside India. There is a trend now that Indian scientists going revisiting those papers and all the documents available, and then reformulating those findings and highlighting that as part of the Indian knowledge system. I think it is very positive that one should be doing it. Then focus on research, as Dr. Rajesh was mentioning in the initial remarks itself, that the foundation is being come up, and we see the focus of research also in the undergraduate program that is being implemented. That research has been brought to the undergraduate itself. At the 4th year, you can have in the education honors, I mean, with research, degree with a BSc or BCom or whatever honors. I think you can have research into that. So research is being promoted, and the culture, research culture, now in higher education institutions. In fact, it's very important that research culture would mean that there should be also the scientific temper and research, the scientific attitude that being to be nurtured and facilitated in the school system also. Then only it can come to the higher education. I hope that would happen in the school system. But there is an area where one has to be careful. Always research and research is always evidence-based. You cannot have myths as part of a knowledge, and then research would say that, oh, we need evidence for that. So there is an area of concern that one may have to look into. Then technology integration. Yes, technology integration is being done in a very extensive manner. Now, technology in terms of the gadgets, the equipment, the hardware that is being provided to education institutions, and also the nationwide provision of resources through efforts like Swayam and also in NCRT, the Pathshala, or many NCRT as another repository, and encouragement is also being done and should be done according to me. It is not that the central the repository is only to be developed, and everybody contributing to the center, like in what is being done in Swayam, is important. And we should have a collection available of and then MOOCs can be there, and already the MOOCs are being used by the students. But similarly, institutional also, the technology should provide that repository in an institution. The institution take, in a decentralized manner, such repositories, because even whatever a learner produces is also a resource. And where will that resource go? Normally, that resource gets ignored after a year or two. But that also can go into this repository. So that is there. But one of the things which the technology is not being used now also, although the support is there, is that always the online learning is seen as a vertical type of a learning. There is somebody who has to provide, like IGNOU, will provide this courses or this, and that people will use it. That is, of course, important, because that is to be done, should be continued that way. But along with that, it's equally important that if the teaching learning process in the classes have to improve, there should be a horizontal interaction also possible. Not only vertical connectivity or vertical, what can I say, that engagement, but also a horizontal type of engagement, that children or students in a particular group or in the community should come together and learn through a social media. Sort of a WhatsApp or some sort of a group of that sort, where you can interact. The teacher will be there, the students will be there. A class in that, such things also can be done. But also, anyway, assessment, it is already being used in a large scale technology. Okay, next slide. And enhanced teacher training, quality and continuous professional development of teachers, equipping them with the skills to implement the new approaches. I think this is ITEP is also an initiative for the school teachers, and NCTE, which is an agency for teacher education, for the first time talked about also college teachers, and but they have not come out anything for college teachers. And what is happening is the MMTTC, and that's of course for the faculty development of the university and college teachers. Inclusivity and equity. So 2020 aims to create an inclusive and equitable education system. Yes. So that is to what extent maybe the flexibility and all that's being given in its programs will help in doing it. Increased expenditure on education. See, it was only something like 3.1 or 3.2% in 2020 when of the GDP being used, and it has increased to 4 point something now. I think 4.5 or something. But the expectation is that it should reach 6% of the GDP. And that's very important. That shift from 4.2 to 6% is a big jump. And such an investment is absolutely critical. And because if all these recommendations that we are coming in the NPE, if it has to be really effective, an investment of that sort is important. From where will this investment come is an issue. Now, we have, of course, central resources coming in. We do have the state resources which come through the to the center through the taxes and all. That also is there. We do not have the earlier, like we used to. I remember that we used to go to the center and with a proposal that next 5 years that we would like to do all these things and then we should support. And there used to be what is known as recurring and non-recurring. Development and non-development funding that is being done, which is a plan and non-planned. Plan and non-planned funding that is being given. As the 5-year plans are not there and there is no planning commission today, this is not happening, and it comes only from the ministry to the states for that. So resources have to CSR funds. Yes, is being envisaged as a money that would. I think that should come into CSR. Earlier was used in addition to the funding given, but now it may be even becoming part of the funding. In any case, from wherever the resource comes, it has to be at least 6%, let's hope, by 35 to implement all these. Next slide. Implementation challenges. I think I am now I have already, if you have questions related to what is being done, we can always ask. The implementation challenges of NEP, the scale of complexity of the reforms, including infrastructure gaps, teacher training needs, and funding issues. These are the major implementation challenges. Digital divide, it is still, with all the technology, all being done, even today, we cannot claim that it has reached all nook and corners that one can reach the signals of our online programs. But in addition to that, whether even if it reaches, whether the students have the financial capacity and the social economic condition that they can access it. Yes, one might say that today the mobile phones are very popular and everybody can have a mobile phone to use that. Yes, that's true. But to what extent an effective teaching, learning or experience can be provided in such a manner still makes digital divide an issue. Next slide. Language disparity. See, there are conflicting things that is there. I don't want to go into a political discussion on the language policy, which language, Hindi should be there or not. No, I'm only looking at as an academic. On one side, that English language exposure is important, as everybody will knows. And will this create the type of overemphasis on the regional languages? Like, for example, when 4-year undergraduate program was implemented in Kerala, I know very well that while 3-language formula is there in the school system, children would like to have English and any other Indian language or foreign language in the higher education system, which was not possible because the guidelines did say that it should be an Indian language which is taken in addition to something. So it has created, universities have deviated from that. MG University, I know, has deviated, but some other, all universities might not have deviated from that. Now, the issue basically is we need language mainly for a communication purpose. Now, India is a very large country with not just the national languages, but also so many dialects and so many, how many, 800 languages? I don't know what number, may be wrong what I'm telling. But large number of languages, and their home language can be that. And policy itself has said that we'll encourage those in the school system, but making it more uniform when it comes to higher education. And English was, yes, English is a colonial language, but English is a language of communication. In a global context, in a global world that we are there today, I think languages are languages for communication, and wherever needed, the students should have the freedom to study whatever language. I think this divide can happen because of the English and not knowing English in the not to that extent in government schools, and private schools will continue to go in English. I mean, this issue is still a problem to be looked at, and NP has not really addressed that to the extent needed. Potential and impact of privatization. I mean, it can easily be seen from the policy that a lot of privatization is recommended. Now, there is a potential. By privatization, you get more money or investment to the system. But there's also an issue of certain marginalized groups to be left out of the system. You know very well that the education today is very expensive. I mean, higher education used to be highly subsidized earlier, and it's not a good thing to subsidize higher education to that extent. We can all agree. but then it should not be too expensive that the common man is not able to take it. No wonder that there is a tendency for Indian students going abroad, because today an Indian student can take a medical degree from outside the country with less money as one would pay in a paid seat in India. So these are some of the issues which too much of privatization will lead to concerns that of access being affected of those who deserve access. So that is an issue of privatization. Now, next, the centralization of power is very much there, because this is a criticism that being in education being in the concurrent list, that the policy is being rolled out from top to bottom, and which is important because we have to keep a balance between the two at because once a certain amount of standardization is required at the top level, but in a large country like India, maybe the largest, most complex democratic country as we saw, and in a federal type of a situation, that if it has to be implemented at the grassroots level, I think it has to be a two-way approach of standardization from top, flexibility, and contextualization from bottom. This I realized as a first-hand experience when I was working on the ITEP Kerala committee. And because it was said at that time was the NCT, which was implementing the national education policies, multidisciplinary approach, and said all education teacher training will go to arts and science colleges, which are multidisciplinary colleges, and standalone colleges will not exist. And even if it has to exist, it should transform itself into the multidisciplinary colleges. Even today, that's the stand that they have. I mean, it's maybe good from quality point of view. I have no disagreement to the quality or the conceptually to that. But how to achieve that? And when there are about 200 teacher training colleges, standalone teacher training colleges in Kerala, more than that at the secondary level, and around the same number or more primary teacher training colleges, colleges in Kerala. How are we going to do that? And that too, they want by 2030. That is what NCT says. That is 5 years from now. Now we will again monitor this, and in 2030, we will again have a discussion like this and say to what extent NPE has been implemented, and we will find a lot of problems coming. I mean, you don't have to go through that to find. So we'll have to take actions to take care that while the quality improvement and transformation should happen, but it should happen in a more smoother manner. There is a lot of lack of clarity on implementation. Even the implementing agencies don't know what they are going to say after 1 year, that a new change that will be coming, because they are also learning from that. I'm not criticizing them, because they're all part of the system. They are also learning how to transform. Transformation happens not only in the institutions, not only in the schools and colleges, but also in the national agencies. Now, the Act, for example, the Higher Education Council of India Act is only now in the Parliament. Till now, AICTE and UGC and all, they were separately working on, which of course created lack of coordination. It's a fact, because what NCT was telling, what UGC were telling, they were not matching. We found that when we were having this committee discussions. But if teacher training has to happen in a arts and science college, how can you ignore UGC guidelines? So there were problems. I think National Council of the Higher Education Council of India, if it comes, that may solve that problem. But what I'm trying to say is that sort of a transformation happens at all levels. Transformation is happening at every level. Now, there is no, we'll come to that in the next slide. Let's go. Yeah, 5 years of NEP. Let's go into that. So there, I think the 4-year undergraduate program, we are talking about it. Many of you know about it. Kerala has implemented. Many other states have implemented. And some of the issues that is coming up is infrastructure is an issue. classes are not available and such things. Okay, that can be taken care of. Let's say there will be buildings coming up. Workload is an issue. Now, there are teachers to teach certain subject, but there are new subjects coming up. So when new subjects are coming, then there is no teacher to teach. How are we going to do that? And then guest teachers are taken. So this is a transition time. I mean, we do agree any transition will have this difficulty. Lack of handholding, mentors need to look for there are mentors now decided by the Ministry of Education in Delhi who are spread all over the country, and their role is that they should come and help these institutions to implement NEP. So what they are doing is basically, but because they are assigned to do that, so they discuss with the institutions and say that this is the way you have to do that. Now they say what is recommended, or rather what is being as a directive, but many of them don't look into the contextual problems and say how different one can implement that. There can be a solution, but you should only have this solution, may not be a good. So issues related to the lack of contextualization and compulsorily something being implemented, that can lead to chaos. And if not chaos, at least it will due to delay in the implementation, at least. Then language options, I talked about that earlier. Funding issues. Now the private cost has increased quite a lot, and it will continue to increase with private universities coming up, private autonomous colleges coming up. There is more and more self-financed programs. That there will be fees more than that. So all the private cost will increase in education. Availability of internship opportunities is an issue. Internship is a very good idea in higher education, because that actually is what that will link the theory with the actual practice. But availability of that in all places where colleges are there is an issue. Then blending of modes. Theoretically, there is a blending of modes. I'm still not sure. Maybe in this, somebody could clarify that to me, whether there is a accepted blending of courses offered by IGNOU and the formal institutions. Is that being used? The modes blending? If that is achieved, that's very good, and that's what we should try to achieve. Then vertical online interaction, I told about that. There should be the horizontal ones also. Insufficient support to designing learning experience. This I put last because nobody really talks about it. Finally, what happens in the classroom depends on how the teacher, the faculty organizes that learning environment. Through MMTTC, I have been sort of surveying many of the topics, which of course is provided as a curriculum for that. And the people follow that, and then MMTTC. There is very less where the actual practice in the classroom in innovative manner with a collaborative, reflective process is not included. And even if it is included or doing done, today's teachers are not in a position to make use of that effectively. Next slide. Yeah, I thought of going similar experiences in ITEP. Multidisciplinarity is the major issue. Then how to make see what is my multidisciplinarity? See, in a policy, one can say that there's nothing wrong. Multidisciplinary environment is the best. Yes, accept it. No problems on that. But when we are implementing multidisciplinarity, what is the concept of multidisciplinarity is an issue. And we should really know, when will we say that a college becomes a multidisciplinary college? Just because that in the campus there are in the same college campus there is a education department as well as the other departments. They are all students will be living in that complex or that campus. Then is it that multidisciplinary? Or actual multidisciplinary will mean that the access to the other disciplines also should happen? Yes, that is what they say. There will be a subject specialization as well as an education specialization. Good. But subject specialization, if the subjects are being taught in the education department itself, like physics, chemistry, history, whatever in the education department by different teachers, and the subjects being taught in the other departments by other teachers in the like what happens, I understand in some of the two institutions where ITEP has been already introduced in Kerala. I understand that's how it goes on. How that multidisciplinary environment will make a difference, I'm not clear. Maybe it's a transitional issue, but we have to address that. Then existence of the institution, especially foundation and preparatory level, is an issue. Because now no DLED, no certificate in teacher, everybody will be graduates, all are higher education courses. What will happen to your DLED center? What will happen to your diet? What will diet do? Clarity is not there still. And lack of timely and appropriate guidelines. See, we don't say that this is what we have to reach in 2030 and say, you follow the guidelines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then 30 it reaches. No, you only talk about the first two steps. The people who are implementing are in confusion. What is going to happen to my institution? What will happen to my job? So the entire, because that's also a transformational issue, but then which only delays things. Acceptable. I'm not telling everything may not be clear, but then we should be clearly understanding that it is not clear. So one has to make it clear what are the things to be implemented first, what are the implemented second. So that has to be, that sort of a attempt has not been made. And then the lack of alignment of national agencies like UGC, NCT. I told you earlier, UGC tells one thing and NCT may say a slightly different thing, all come within the lack of sufficient commitment. So these are the list of things which really come in the way. I think it's time that I should stop, which is more than an hour that I started. So like HEC, I talked to many of this CABE. You know, many of you remember there was a Central Advisory Board of Education, CABE. And that is where all the states meet every year. I think they used to meet. I have attended some of those as an observer from when I used to be in IGNOU and National Institute of Open Schooling. And it's a great experience attending that. Prime Minister opens that, and then and every state minister will talk about their state. That's a communication between states, there's communication from center to state, all these. It's only an advisory body. It has no statutory power. But that was good enough to engage in difficulties and understanding of things all over the country. CABE is dissolved a few years back. Now, they are supposed to come out with a new mechanism, which has not happened till today. So there is no discussion yearly. There is no discussion that happens from between state and the center through any formal means. So it is basically a top-down approach of policy implementation. Will that work? We'll have to wait and see. No stakeholder engagements. Who are the stakeholders? There are any engagements that they should be brought together. Region-wise, let's forget about national. Today, online is available. It's not very difficult to put them together in an online. No forum to resolve issues if there are difficulties coming up. I actually faced that when the committee was being, when I was chairing that committee and we were discussing with stakeholders. And we also did not have answers. So only because I had some connection informally with some people, I used to ask why they like this. They will say, oh, it's because of that. And so that was a short circuiting that we used to do to understand what is the purpose of. And that's the reason the NCT, the regulation that was a draft regulation which was circulated in March 2025 and was formalized, suddenly said we are going back in that. That means something would have happened in between. Now that we are waiting for the formal regulations to come. Why should that be a hurry in doing things? I think transformation cannot be done in a hurry. So that is in 5 years, 5 years we have done certain things, and then 5 years we should know what we have done, what we have not done, what has been the problems, and go forward. I hope that happens. If that happens, it is good for the implementation of the policy. Next slide. Yeah, next. So, see, just to conclude, this part is a conclusion part. Transformational change is not like small changes, not an additive change. not a, of course, it is not replacement, but it is a very complex type of a situation being changed. So it is usually undertaken to address major challenges or achieve substantial improvements. So that is when you take a transformational. Let's accept that yes, such a situation was there for India, at least in secondary and higher education. That's why we went for a transformational change. Change in its strategy, structure, culture, and operational processes. Everything to be changed. We are not replacing it, any system. Next. So NEP 2020 should build on the development of education system and levels of outcomes existing in the different states. See, being complex and being diverse, the developments that has been happened in Kerala may be different from that of UP or Orissa or in Rajasthan or in Kashmir or in West Bengal. They are all in different levels. We all know. I don't want to go into that, and nobody will disagree to that also. A one model approach for the whole country in a place where already there is a differential, diverse levels of development is not a very positive. So it is something like bringing all to a minimum average. So all need not go up to the level of certain states, but all should be only at an average. All should come to that. Is that what we are trying to attempt? No, I don't think in a country we should try to attempt that. What we should try to attempt is that every state should be allowed to grow, accept the policy, no disagreement on that, not if political differences are there, that's different. But academically, no, we have to accept what is being accepted, and that's a very good policy, very good developments that has been suggested there. But implementation will have to be much more smoother and with a lot of communication and engagements, and the local needs have to be considered and contextual conditions have to be considered, maintaining the critical expectations of the policy. So that is what is to be done. To write this here is easy, but to do that, I think you need all those mechanisms. Next page. Yeah, with this I conclude. I just looked into the Google and found this picture. I found it very good. This is how to effectively manage a change, a transformational change. If you have to manage, what are the 6 principles that we have to look into? This is not my idea, but I liked it. I endorsed that. That's why I am presenting here. One is clear vision and purpose in the beginning. Not only for the people who develop the policy, but the entire country. There should be a clear vision. This is what we are going into. That is one. Second is leadership, commitment and alignment. There has to be a commitment. Yes, we are going to do that. Leadership means it is not only the top leadership, but leadership at all levels. So that, which of course is not always easy, but to the extent possible, that concurrence should be there. Third is stakeholder engagement and communication. It's very, very important, which is quite less. If the communication is not a one-way communication we are talking about, communication is a two-way communication. I don't think that happens to the extent needed while implementing this policy. I think if that is to be focused further, that's a very key thing. If that, according to me, that can solve many of the problems, rather than just talking, one talks one thing and the other talks against that. There's no point. It is not going to take us anywhere. Then flexibility and adaptability. This actually is something for an institution that they have said that, but equally important in a large system. If you are not flexible, and policy itself talks about flexibility, incidentally, for the students. So if students say that flexibility is allowed by the policy, the implementation of the policy should also have that flexibility of how individually, in states, that we can really do that. It can be adapted, not adopted. Then acknowledgement of failures. I think 5 years is the time that we should say, okay, we have tried to do it, but we have not succeeded in that. Are we ready to say some of these things? If we say that for our own change, it will be useful. But that's why I said 5 years is not a time to celebrate, but it is a time to introspect. It is time to review and introspect. Then the last one, sustainability of continuous improvement. That improvement has to be sustained. It's not enough that you take it to a particular level and then leave it. In any case, in the next 10 years, 30-35 is the target given that for all these transformations to happen. Let's all wish to, we all should try our best to achieve that in our own small ways. But then if it happens, it will be a great achievement, because 10 years is not a long time to achieve a transformation. It could take more time, and we should be ready to take care of that. Even if it takes 15 years, it doesn't matter, provided we are able to achieve what is expected of the National Education Policy 2020. Thank you very much. I took more time. Sorry about that.
No, sir. It was a pleasure listening to you. So we wish you could have gone more on the slides. Absolutely, we did not find ourselves in any kind of boredom throughout your session, sir. It was an enthralling session. In fact, many of the aspects that needed to be understood in full have been explained up to a very great level by your good self. And therefore, I'm sure all the audience that we have today share my views as well. So it is now left to the audience to add on and maybe put forth their comments also on many of the very important aspects that Mohan Menon sir has just now explained regarding NEP 2020. Now the floor is open for discussion. You can unmute yourselves, come over and put forth your views. Yes, please. Yes, Shailija ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mohan sir. It was truly enlightening, very comprehensive analysis and review of NP. I really enjoyed it. It's really great listening to you, sir. In fact, I was reminded of my BEd days when I sat as a student in front of you. The clarity and the simplicity of the presentation. I still remember it, and we still maintain that. I'm so grateful that I'm here. Thank you for inviting me, sir. I don't have anything to add except a very small point, because I am from the area of disability, so I have been looking at NP from that perspective. I'm sure you may not have looked at it from that perspective. So I just want to add a very small point. Not that NP, the present NP has anything very special about disability. They have not said many new things in the area of disability. But one point, yes, they have. And that is they've added sign language. The word sign language or the phrase sign language have appeared in NP for the first time. And they have recommended sign language should be taught. And that's, I think, a great move, at least conceptually. I don't think they've still been implemented, but at least that much of thought has been put into that, and there has been this small change. And I think we should appreciate that. That's all I wanted to say. We still have a long way to go in the area of disability. NP doesn't have many new things. But at least one point is there. I thought we should just acknowledge it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
You carry on. I mean, I agree with what she said, and that's been included, although I did not mention here. And many other small things have not been mentioned, but we have to see how this is being implemented. Yes.
Sir, I think Jayakumar sir is also online. Sir, kindly come out. You wish to make a point, Mr. Jayakumar?
You're muted. You are muted.
You are muted. Yeah, please.
Thank you for giving me the wonderful opportunity, sir. It is a very fantastic program, because earlier there was a lot of controversies regarding the NEP and some protests are coming out of. But Mohan sir, giving what the wording, the exact wording that is the senior SRO Rajesh sir, that is an entering session. That is the finish waiting to this session. That is really entering. I'm focused on. I have to note such more knowledge about this NEP, but sir clearly focused on one thing. That is from the initial ages of our independence, come through just going through the different commissions. Then only he making the conclusions and the various points of the NEP. He then going through the challenges, transformation, what to be continued. The main happiness coming to me is that he in the last area he clearly says about the transformation issues and challenges. And I noted the one thing that it is the point that he's saying. I'm adding to support his point. It is the 5 years not only for success. It is the time for realizing the real issue. Thank you a lot, sir, for giving such a valuable information. And thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Please, sir. Mohan, sir.
No, thanks. I mean, I have no questions in that. I
Sir.
do agree. Yes.
Yes, please.
Sir.
Geeta, ma'am, please.
Hello, I'm Dr. M.S. Geeta, former Dean of Faculty of Education, University of Kerala. Sir, Mohan Menon, sir, it was a wonderful, very comprehensive, excellent talk, and I have listened to your talk so many times earlier, and I know the caliber of your explanation and communication. And I think many teachers gathering here are from Arts and Science College, and they might have thought that, or they might be thinking that all the teacher education colleges are to be absorbed in Arts and Science colleges. They might be thinking like that, but there is a possibility of converting teacher education colleges. There are 3 ways in converting the teacher education colleges. They are not standing as standalone colleges, and there may be 2 more options also, merging and collaboration. Can you please explain to the audience that 3 things also, sir? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Professor Geeta. I mean, I may not take a lot of time to do that because
okay. Only a brief explanation, sir. Brief explanation, because almost all the audience here are, I think, the Arts and Science College teachers. Okay, and they might know that, or they should know that. They should know that. Okay.
And it's important that we communicate. I mean, the National Council for Teacher Education, as a follow-up to the NEP, has come out with 3 options of transformation I mean, there are 3 options of organizing rather there are 4 options. One, of course, is starting a department of education in your own Arts and Science College, and then you can start a ITEP program, 4-year integrated teacher education program. Second is that if a standalone teacher education program institution it can transform itself to a Arts and Science College, and then for that NCT says something that 2 programs of 4-year undergraduate program should be there. Although it is not very clear yet what do they mean by that fully, but then at least that is possible. Third is that you can go for a merging with a teacher education college can be merged to a undergraduate, Arts and Science multidisciplinary college. And the fourth is that you don't have to merge, but then you can have a collaboration with 1 or 2 more, which that's where I said there is a difference between UGC and ITEP. One example is here. UGC says it can be a cluster of institutions where teacher education college also could be one. But NCT doesn't talk about cluster. It takes that You can two institutions going into an MOU. But I think that theoretically or rather conceptually, it is one and the same thing, probably. Yeah. So this is the way one can do that. And in any case, it is sure that teacher education now will become very much part of the mainstream higher education programs, which it used not to be to that extent. Even primary teacher education, elementary teacher education, even pre-primary teacher education, all will become part of the higher education system, which is a major change. I think that can be. We can discuss it at in more detail if needed. But this is the crux of what Professor Geeta. Thank you for reminding me to do that. I think it's very important that I do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir and ma'am. We have Dr. Jain PA, Faculty of Indian Maritime University, Kochi. Dr. Jain, over to you.
Yeah, sir. Sir, what is exactly lifelong learning in the new education policy? My second question is Bloom's taxonomy. When you talked about contextualization in Indian condition, how it is feasible that high order thinking, as you said, we are quite backward in that area. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, the first one is on what is the first question? I mean,
first one is lifelong learning. Second one is Bloom's taxonomy in the context.
You see, lifelong learning is something for a long time we have been talking about. In fact, lifelong, and even we say that it starts at the prenatal stage to the time one dies. So it is, so the life starts there. Probably
but is
that's
it contradicting outcome-based education, which talks about.
It's not contradictory. These are two different concepts. One is that lifelong learning only means that there was a time, like in my days, once you finish your degree, and then of course you don't have to learn. Then you have to only either teach or you don't have to do some work. You can go and do some profession. Today, that's not possible. Throughout, you have to learn. If you don't learn, you perish. So lifelong learning is a learning that happens with all types of modes. Formal, non-formal, informal, of course, we learn always. Formal, non-formal, and with online mode or face-to-face, whatever, you have to go on upgrading yourself and learn so that you can be up to date. So because almost every year things change. So if that is the case, that is lifelong learning. That has nothing contradictory to outcome-based. Outcome-based came out of Bloom's taxonomy. It talks about coming out with learning outcomes very clearly, so that we can, and that UGC came out with that outcome-based education sometime about 10 years back, so that is what outcome-based. You can define it very clearly, and right from the graduate attributes to qualification descriptors to program outcomes to course outcomes, and many of you will know that. Now, the question you asked at the end is very pertinent. How are you going to do that for the higher cognitive level?
Higher order thinking.
Higher order thinking. Is higher order thinking in Bloom himself, he talks about it. In fact, he doesn't use the word higher order thinking, but he talks about cognitive, application level, higher cognitive abilities. He says that while outcome-based one is very good for mastery learning, which he says as Bloom, so you can achieve everything. You can clearly define it. You can clearly measure it. You can teach also accordingly. So that is possible. But when it comes to higher level, which are developmental outcomes, as one may call it, can you talk about 100% creativity? Is not possible. So that is more qualitative. So you can only measure qualitatively. You can quantify it, but quantify it to a limited extent. So that part, what you said is right. It cannot be as easy as the lower order thinking outcomes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Jain, for that question.
Thank you.
Now we have Dr. Binnie Toms, Senior Regional Director, Bhopal. Ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh. Good afternoon, everyone. I don't have a question. Would like to thank Dr. Menon for a very interesting and excellent presentation. Thank you, sir, for taking us through the journey of educational policies in the country, reminding us of Operation Blackboards of primary education, and then all the way through NEP to NEP 2020 with all its nitty-gritties and especially the challenges. So as you know, for IGNOU, many aspects of NEP like the multidisciplinary approach, credit transfer or lateral entry, these have been adopted by an open and distance learning system for quite some time. But for the other conventional universities, these are challenging, as you rightly said, when it comes to implementation, because when we interact with other colleagues from other systems, it is quite challenging for them. But I think slowly we are continuously reviewing these things, and maybe soon these challenges would be taken care of one by one. Thanks again. And sir, your last slide on transformation, that was really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. And the compliments to Dr. Rajesh for organizing the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bini. Yeah, I see. I agree that in 1987, when I joined IGNOU, at that time itself we had this credit transfer, and an agreement with Pondicherry University, even some other universities also. So it was initiated, and it was in a limited manner. It was also practiced by IGNOU right from that time. So we had accepted. We were quite ahead of time. I think we should be very proud of that in IGNOU, that we were ahead of time, and we should be happy that the National Education Policy took up that concept and then expanded, and hopefully they will be able to execute and implement throughout the country. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bini, and thank you, sir, for your very comprehensive reply. Dr. Sugita, would you like to come in?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Let me say thanks to Dr. Mohan, sir. Anyway, sir, I would like to say, with regard to prospects and with regard to retrospect, we have expectations only, because national education policy was implemented in the preamble itself. It is said that the rich heritage of India and its eternal Indian knowledge and thought has been a guiding light for this policy. And one of the major objectives of NEP is holistic and value-based education. And there will be inclusion of moral, ethical reasoning, like character building, then development of spiritual temper, and understanding unity in diversity. And in that part, promotion of yoga only be achieved. Even the implementation of Sanskrit language is not yet completed. And another thing is education rooted in Indian ethics, that is deeply rooted in Indian culture, because progress globally it is relevant. This promotion is essential for the citizens with a strong sense of moral and spiritual grounding. What is lacking in implementing national education policy? I think so. Even now we are expecting that part will be filled by the officers who implement this, or the educationalists who implement this NEP's objectives. Anyway, the stress to their part is lacking. I don't know the reason for that. That's all, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Sugita. It's good that you asked that question, because I also felt during my presentation I have not given enough time for the presentation of some of these focus areas that the policy is trying to do, especially related to Indianization or Indian values and Indian knowledge system, etc. Partly because I'm not probably the right person to say that. I mean, that's also I have my own limitations, I should mention. So, but what you have said is correct. There has been a monitoring of things that maybe being done of each of these being monitored, to what extent it is achieved. I don't have an access to that really. I mean, sitting here, maybe it's available in some of the. But what I want to say generally is this is not the first time that in the country that we have tried to do that. In fact, one of the slides I mentioned about the decolonization and Indianization has been very much part of this. Right at the time of Radhakrishnan Commission, that is 47, 48, 49. He was a philosopher who was a great scholar of India. And then he has mentioned some of these things. They are not maybe in the same language that you are putting or the NP is putting. But the emphasis was very much given. Value education was has been a lot of value education. The problem with value education, when I used to teach also in teacher training and all, is that how are you going to first develop it? That is number one. And the right values to be developed, it has to be practiced. That is an institution wanting to develop the values, the institution itself should practice it. I mean, there are institutions like Rishi Valleys and Aurobindos and all these, which have been there in the system, which is still there. They're doing a good job. And they have been developing it. I think it is a good thing that NP is focusing and then trying to develop all these things. Secondly, why I have only one difficulty when it comes to the Indian knowledge system is that knowledge is universal. Indian knowledge system, we have contributed. Even nobody will deny that the contributions of Aryabhatta and all these. I mean, instant if you look at it is, and also that time we say all these are accepted, but it is also to be. You see, if you go into the Gurukul system, for example, it was an entirely decentralized way of learning happening in the homes of the gurus. It is not a centralized, uniform way of education. Now, if that is accepted as a principle in this, I would expect that to happen in a policy implementation also. Don't you think so? You see, this is where I have certain difficulties. What I am putting it as a content, I am completely for what you said. All this we have to strengthen, we have to come out with. I think we have probably not done enough. Now we are doing it good and put it into the universal knowledge system. But then there should not be contradictions in what we are doing. That is the only thing I wanted to say. So otherwise, as I said earlier, I don't think I will be able to answer. But all these, I'm sure, will be monitored. And there are implementation part. One thing I can see, which never happened earlier in the policy implementations, there is a lot of passion in implementation. From where that passion comes, unfortunately, there's a lot of unnecessary political discussions in that. Politics can only create problems. It can, if you want to implement, then it has to be out of politics. I have my own personal politics. That doesn't matter to me. I appreciate all the things which are there in the policy. I do also criticize that. And I take it as my right to do it as an individual. I mean, I don't want to go on telling that everything is great in the policy. No, I don't want to. But I won't also not criticize policy if there is this is good things. This is the most comprehensive policy ever that has come out with for transforming this. No doubt about it. Now, how best when the policy is so good in all aspects, we would also want to implement that properly, effectively all over the country. That is also only my. I don't know. I mean, this is.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. So, if there are any further questions, maybe one more question we can take, and after that, we can go into the closing part. Anyone? Okay, I think we are almost 2 hours into the session. And sir also must be quite tired and hungry, having spoken at so much of length into the policy, into the implementation part, and everything related to the national education policy. So I think it is time to wind up with a huge sense of gratitude towards Mohan Menon sir, and also the participants who have made it so lively. So I request the academic at our regional center, Dr. T.R. Satyakirti, to do the honors of presenting a vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Respected Dr. Mohan Menon sir, our regional director, Dr. Rajesh, other colleagues and other faculties from other institutes. So it was a very elaborate talk on the retrospects as well as the prospects of the NEP 2020, and Mohan Menon sir was explaining it at a very in a lengthy manner. And my observations are that for as far as IGNOU is concerned, we are said to be the forerunners of these many of these aspects that has been taken up in the NEP 2020, like the internationalization, then flexibilities, and all these things. And one more thing I found is that the moral values that the present young generation that is lacking has to be taken up in NEP 2020 also, because many of the value systems that we find in the families are going down day by day when we compare it with the Western countries, especially. Even the Western countries are more into the values now, but in India, I think it's coming down day by day. So I think that aspect has to be given more emphasis, especially at the primary level, so that the children who are coming up, because the families are becoming very, very small, and they are much into the what you call the children are more tested, so they are not taught with the moral values at home. So it's time for the teachers to take up at the primary level as well as in the school levels also. And as far as my vote of thanks is concerned, I would like to thank Dr. Mohan Menon sir for his extensive talk and very elaborative and very informative talk. Thank you, sir, on behalf of IGNOU Regional Center Trivandrum and IGNOU in particular. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Next, I would like to thank our regional director, Dr. M. Rajesh, for taking a very good initiative on organizing this particular program as part of the 5 years of NEP 2020. Next, I would like to thank all the faculties from various institutes who have joined us for this particular program. Thank you all very much. Next, I would like to thank all my colleagues from IGNOU for taking part in this program. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Satyakirti. Thank you for presenting a lot of thanks. Once again, I thank Mohan Menon sir for his elaborate presentation, and I should say it is we never feel satiated after listening to you, and today was no different. You may feel that it was a lengthy session, but each and every one of us enjoyed your session, sir, and we hope that in the near future you can, sir.
Thank you for inviting me.
No, sir, it was our pleasure as always, and I also hope that in the near future we can have another session with you. Thank you. Definitely, sir.
Okay.
And I also thank all the